Thanksgiving was always cold in our house, not because of the weather, but because of the silence. The kitchen hummed with fluorescent light. The turkey was dry, the wine was too sweet, and the tension, you could taste it like ash. Kai stood by the sink, scraping leftover stuffing into the trash. Forks clinked from the dining room, polite sounds trying to cover decades of resentment. She didn't plan to start anything. She just asked, "So, Reed, I heard Mom and Dad signed the house over to you. That true?" The words floated out casually. No accusation. Maybe just a trace of confusion. After all, Kai's had been there through every stroke, every chemo appointment. She wasn't looking for praise, just a little truth. Reed turned from the fridge, beer still in hand, and gave her the same smug smirk he'd worn since childhood. "Why do you care? You never really lived here after high school." His tone was sharp, but the smile stayed. "Thought you were too good for this place, remember?" Kai stayed calm. "That's not true. I was working. I came home when it mattered." His voice sharpened. Flying in from Asheville doesn't count as being around Kai's. She turned off the faucet, dried her hands, looked at him and said, "If it's family property, shouldn't we all be part of the conversation?" That's when it happened. No warning. One moment she was standing near the counter. The next, her back slammed into the fridge door with a sickening thud. Her lungs gasped. And then Reed's knee shot upward, straight into her face. White-hot pain exploded across her skull, and everything faded. The pain in her face was unbearable, but not as sharp as what came next. Kai's dropped to the floor, blood dripping from her nose onto the white tile. She reached, blinded, shaking for the wall phone. Her fingers found the receiver. She hit 9, then 1. But before she could press the last number, the phone was yanked from her hand. It slammed to the floor. Cracked. "Stop it," her mother hissed. "It's just a scratch. Stop being dramatic." Kai's looked up, her eyes swelling shut, her lips split. Her mother didn't flinch. Not a gasp, not a question, not an ounce of concern. Just annoyance, like Kai's had spilled juice on the rug. In the background, the TV played a football game. The announcer's voice chirped, "Second and goal." Kai's turned, bleeding, shaking toward her father. He didn't even glance her way. Remote in hand, eyes on the screen. "There she goes again," he muttered. "Drama queen." No one moved. Not her mother, not Reed, not the man who raised her. So Kai stood dizzy, wobbling, and walked to the door. Every step left a drop behind her. Blood and something else. Something broken. She stepped into the cold air. And for 1 second, just one, she waited. For someone to follow. For anyone to say, "Wait, are you okay?" No one came. Just the door creaking shut behind her like the final period at the end of a cruel sentence. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and cold vending machine coffee, but to Case, it smelled like safety. She kept her head low as she walked in through the back employee entrance, her badge clipped to her coat. Her face mostly hidden by a scarf and a layer of drugstore concealer. The swelling had gone down a little, but no amount of makeup could erase the truth her skin still wore. She passed Jorge by the vending machines. He glanced at her, his eyes hesitated, but he didn't say a word, just nodded. That quiet kind of check-in men sometimes do when they know something's wrong but don't know how to ask. She gave a weak smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. Then, as she turned the corner to the break room, a voice stopped her. "Kai's." It was Zoe, new nurse. Barely out of nursing school, always bright-eyed, always carrying 2 coffees. She froze when she saw Kai's. Her smile faltered. Then, softly, without any hint of judgment, without asking what happened, she asked one thing. "Are you safe?" 3 words, and Kai's nearly broke right there. Not because she was asked, but because no one had ever asked her that before. Not in that house, not growing up, not even when she came home bruised at 13 and said she fell down the stairs. She nodded, a lie. Yeah, just slipped on the back steps. Black ice. Zoe didn't press. She just handed over a coffee. Here, figured you'd need this. You always take the first calls. Kais took it with both hands, her fingers trembling. It wasn't the coffee that warmed her, it was being seen. The supply closet was quiet, just the soft hum of the overhead light and the smell of gauze and alcohol pads. Kai sat on an overturned crate. Her body hurt, but not as much as her memory. She pulled out her notebook, small black stitched down the middle, and flipped to a blank page. Slowly, with trembling fingers, she began to write. November 28th. Orbital swelling right side. Minor laceration to lower lip. Bruising along jawline. Dizziness. Possible mild concussion. Her handwriting was neat. Clinical. She wrote like a nurse, but what she was documenting was her own life. Then she paused, took a breath, and wrote the next heading. History. Age 7, shoved off swing set. No apology. Age 9, locked in shed over Pop-Tart. Sunburn, dehydrated, laughed at. Age 13, bruised ribs after falling. No questions asked. Age 17, called hysterical during college argument. Denied school trip. Age 25, excluded from family inheritance meeting. Age 28, assaulted during dinner. Called dramatic. Phone call blocked. She stared at the list. The pen shook in her hand. These weren't accidents. They weren't isolated moments. This was a pattern. If this had been a patient's chart, any of her colleagues would have flagged it, escalated, investigated. But because it was just family, it had been written off, ignored, denied, buried, until now. Kais closed the notebook slowly, not with finality, but with resolve. She wasn't done. She had just begun writing the case against silence. The groceries were light, just a carton of milk, her mother's favorite oat milk creamer, and eggs packed so carefully they might as well have been explosives. Kai stood at the front door, grocery bag in one hand, the other trembling on the doorknob. She had a key. She could walk right in. But still, she rang the bell. Old habit, maybe. Or maybe a final test. Would anyone choose to let her in? No answer. She let herself in. The house smelled exactly the same. Lemon-scented cleaner and stale potpourri. Kai slipped off her shoes like always, as if she still belonged here. Her father sat at the table reading a folded newspaper. He didn't look up. "Hi, Dad," she said quietly. No response. From the hallway came footsteps. Reed. He brushed past her shoulder, no hi, no eye contact, just the faint sting of cologne and memory. Kai stood frozen, grocery bag still clutched tight. Her face had nearly healed the bruises, now yellowish and faded, but no one blanked. No comment, no shame. Her mother finally entered from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "There she is," she chirped. "Put the milk in the fridge, would ya?" Kais moved like a ghost, quiet, obedient, invisible. Her mother glanced at her face for a split second. "You're lucky Reed still puts up with you," she added with a soft laugh, like she'd just told a silly joke. Kais didn't answer. She placed the milk on the counter, but her grip was just a little too tight. The jug hit the surface with a thud. Not enough to break, just enough to be noticed. The attic creaked under her steps. Old wood, old secrets. Dust danced in the light from a single bulb overhead. Kais climbed slowly. Every step made her ribs ache. She wasn't here to confront anyone, just to find something. She told her mom it was an old baby blanket she remembered from when she was sick. A lie. What she really wanted was proof she had ever existed here. She scanned the attic. Christmas boxes, yearbooks, bags full of clothes that were meant for Goodwill but never left. And then, in the far corner, a faded trunk, wedged between an artificial tree and a box labeled Thanksgiving China. She pulled it out. The lock was broken. Inside were photo albums, thick, heavy plastic pages that stuck together from heat. She opened the first one. Reed. Reed crawling. Reed's first haircut. Reed in a pumpkin costume. Page after page, his life was a museum exhibit. Where was she? She kept flipping. Group photos, Thanksgiving, Christmas, but her face was missing, as if she'd been cropped out. Then, near the bottom of the trunk, a smaller album. Its edges were burnt, warped from heat or dampness. She opened it gently, pages stuck together, but one page survived. Half a photo, just the corner of a birthday cake with pink frosting, and a tiny scrawl in purple marker, Kaya's Day, Love 3. Her breath caught. She remembered that cake, strawberry with cream cheese frosting. She had begged for it. And then the memory came rushing back. Reed had wanted the pink ribbon from her dress. She refused. She hid it in the laundry basket. He found it. He ripped the ribbon, shoved her into the linen closet, slammed the door. It locked from the outside. She screamed, kicked, cried, then whimpered, then went quiet. The air grew hot. Her cheek pressed against the towels. Hours passed. And then the sound of heels. Her mother. Kai saw the shadow under the door. A pause. Then footsteps, walking away. No one came until morning. Kai sat on the attic floor holding the half photo in shaking hands. She wasn't just forgotten. She was erased. Her apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that used to feel lonely, but not tonight. Tonight it felt like focus, like preparation. Kai stood in the center of her living room, surrounded by scraps of her own history, photos, a purple bruise on her collarbone, a swollen lip she once tried to hide under red lipstick, medical summaries, discharge papers from urgent care visits she had told friends were just clumsy accidents, handwritten notes, Reed's letter, "You're not worth the air you breathe," screenshots, texts, voicemails, and one recording, her voice barely above a whisper, describing the night of Thanksgiving, the moment her brother's knee broke her nose. Kais took a strip of masking tape and pressed the first photo to the wall, then the hospital form, then the screenshot. One by one, she built her wall, not of shame, but of evidence, not just for her, but for Lily. She stepped back. Her hand trembling, she picked up a black Sharpie and wrote in big, steady letters across the center, "They never hit me hard enough to kill me, just hard enough to keep me quiet." Then she added, "But silence isn't my legacy anymore." The call came on a rainy Thursday. It wasn't long, just 3 sentences from an old coworker who now worked as a substitute teacher at Lily's school. "I saw your niece today. She had a bruise on her elbow." She said her uncle pushed her and called her Little Drama Queen #2. Kais froze. She didn't need more details. She'd lived this script before. The push, the mocking, the gaslight, and the bruise, always explained away as she tripped or she's sensitive. Her knees went weak. Lily was 8, the exact age Kai's was when she first learned pain at home doesn't always leave visible scars, but it always leaves silence. Kais clenched her jaw. No, not again. Not to Lily. If she stayed quiet now, if she let this slide like her parents always had, then Lily would grow up like her, apologizing for being hurt, asking permission to speak, and someday building her own wall of bruises and broken birthdays. Kais picked up her phone and whispered, not to Lily, but to the silence itself, "You don't get her too." The invitation arrived with cursive lettering and fake warmth. "Join us for a family dinner this Sunday." Kais knew better. This wasn't a dinner, it was a trap wrapped in roast beef and fine china. But she said yes, calmly, politely, and then she packed a flash drive, a few manila folders, and a pen with a hidden mic. On Sunday evening, she walked through the front door, same door that once opened to her tears and her silence. Inside, warm lighting, napkins folded like swans, her mother wearing pearls, Reed with his arms slung around their father, grinning like a politician. Kai smiled. She knew this show, the performance of perfection, the illusion of love, the script where she was always the difficult one, the distant one, the dramatist. Then came the seating chart. She was placed at the far end of the table, not next to anyone she could trust, near the kitchen door, near the exit, as if she didn't belong, as if she was an afterthought in her own family. Kai sat quietly, one hand under the table, gently gripping the flash drive, one eye on the wine glasses, and one sentence echoing in her head: let them think they're in control until they're not. The teapot hissed as it reached the center of the table porcelain, elegant and harmless looking. Her mother poured tea with practiced grace. Then suddenly, the kettle tipped. Boiling water spooled straight onto Kai's lap. It seared through fabric onto skin. Kai screamed, a raw, instinctive cry. Chairs shifted. Reed muttered something about clumsiness. Her father took another bite of mashed potatoes. Her mother blinked twice, then said, "You should have worn thicker pants." No one moved. The steam rose, and so did Kai's. She stood, fists clenched, voice trembling with pain and fury. "You have 72 hours. Silence. 72 hours to tell the truth, or I go public. Reed laughed, sharp and thin. About what? Your feelings? Kais pulled the flash drive from her coat pocket and held it up like a match to gasoline. About bruises, x-rays, medical fraud, about a little girl being pushed down the stairs, about lies you've all rehearsed for decades. She leaned over the table, steam still rising from her leg, and said, "Burn me again, and I swear I'll burn down your entire illusion." Then she walked out, the sound of china clinking behind her as if nothing had ever happened. The auditorium was packed, folding chairs lined up in rows, cell phones raised to record the big moment. On stage, a long table with flowers, a projection of Kai's parents smiling, waving, being honored for service to the community. Kai stood in the wings, heartbeat matching the tempo of the clapping. She didn't blink, didn't breathe, just stepped forward and plugged the USB into the laptop connected to the auditorium speakers. Static. Then a child's voice, Lily sobbing. "I don't want to be in the closet again. I'll be good, I promise." A pause. Then her mother's voice, cold. "Good girls don't argue. If you don't want to be locked up, you behave. Simple." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Someone dropped their phone. Reed stood up, stammering, "That's taken out of context." Kais didn't flinch. She clicked the next audio file. A doctor's voice. "This x-ray shows repeated trauma to the ribs. I believe it's not an accident." Another file. "Patient Lily G. Fracture consistent with blunt force. Interview notes redacted by guardian." The audience wasn't clapping anymore. They were staring at Kais and at her parents still frozen on the projection behind her, their smiles starting to rot in silence. For a moment, no one breathed. The audio files echoed into stunned silence. Then a woman stood, gray cardigan, quiet presence, a third-grade teacher. "I reported bruises on Lily's arm last year." Murmurs, heads turning. Another voice followed, a man in a white coat, a pediatrician. "I reviewed the x-rays. The ones Mr. Grayson provided forged. We never issued them." The principal stood next. "We invited them here to honor a lie, and we owe Kais an apology." Kais stood still, tears locked in place. Then the doors at the back of the auditorium opened. 2 officers walked in, calm, precise. "Mr. and Mrs. Grayson, you are under arrest for child abuse, obstruction of justice, and falsifying medical records." Reed whispered, "Don't say a word," through his teeth. Her mother stared ahead, frozen. Her father muttered, "You always were a disappointment." And yet he walked when the handcuffs clicked. The audience didn't cheer, but they didn't stop it either. They watched. As Kais finally stood taller than the shadows that raised her, the papers were signed. Kai was now Lily's guardian. The house felt quiet, but not the terrifying kind of quiet Kais grew up with. It was soft, safe. One evening, Kai set 2 teacups on the table. One chipped, cracked down the side. The other, brand new, perfect, untouched. Lily looked at them confused. Kai's smiled gently. "This one," she pointed at the cracked cup, "is me. And this one," she said, sliding the perfect cup to Lily, "is you. You get to start without cracks, without shame, without silence." Lily reached for the cup like it was made of magic. Kai's added one more thing. "You never need permission to feel safe or to take up space, ever." And in that moment, 2 generations sat together, drinking from teacups, rewriting the ending they never got to have. One cup held survival, the other freedom, and both were full. That night, after Lily fell asleep holding her teacup like a secret, Kai opened a new journal. The cover was blank, but inside, the title she scrawled in dark ink, "Things I Was Told Never to Say." She stared at the first page, then wrote slowly, "They didn't kill me with fists. They killed me with silence, but I won't let that silence raise Lily." The words didn't shake. Her hand didn't tremble. For the first time in her life, Kai's wasn't writing to be heard. She was writing so someone else would never feel alone again. The journal lay open on her desk, a crack in the dam of generations, and through it, healing began. Silence doesn't protect the innocent, it protects the abuser. Kai's story teaches us one brutal truth. Family isn't who shares your blood, it's who protects your soul. If you've ever been told you're too sensitive, if you've ever been hurt and then forced to smile, if you've ever been the one at the table who sat closest to the door, then you know breaking the silence isn't betrayal, it's survival. And survival becomes healing when we name the pain out loud. Let Kai's courage remind us all we don't need permission to feel safe or to be seen. If this story moved you, if you felt even one tear, one deep breath, one moment of, "I know that feeling," then you're not alone, and you're not voiceless. Subscribe to this channel to stand with voices like Kai's, because every view, every like, and every share helps break a silence that's lasted for generations. Let's rewrite the ending together.